So there's a genre of videos on YouTube where people just talk about games, right? Gamers talk about games. But increasingly, some of those videos, they sound really angry. According to CNET, those are videos where the uploader's goal is to get the audience angry as well. They rely on several different tactics like criticizing flaws in games, glitches, or even the price of the game.
But more clicks means more money, and YouTube's algorithm has shown more extreme videos get more views.
So joining us now is CNET editor-at-large and author of that piece, Ian Sherr. So let's just sort of explain what this is. It's like essentially people ranting. And we see videos like that on YouTube, but this is specifically, they're ranting about games, and people love watching this?
They absolutely love it. We're talking about millions of views a week per channel. I started following a group of these guys about a year ago. I started seeing them really rise in popularity. They were gaining hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and some of them are able to do it full time and make a living off of this, ranting about these games. And what's interesting as well is it's not just the games and the companies, which is, you know, a lot of that is kind of trying to talk about consumer issues, but some of it also bleeds into harassment, right? Going after members of the community, going after journalists, and then it starts turning into that as well. So it's a really interesting dynamic that exists in that world.
So do these videos encourage viewers to join or support extremist groups or views, or I mean, is there a level of extremism that exists in the rants?
There's definitely concern that exists about how YouTube's algorithm encourages people toward extreme views, right? And we saw a story in the New York Times, actually a couple of days after mine, about how, for example, one person who was watching kind of, you know, comedy that was a little dark had been kind of moved over time into extremist views, right? So these things can happen because YouTube's algorithm that recommends the next thing to watch will actually encourage you to go after these videos that are pretty popular. When it comes to these people individually, they're not particularly extremists, right? There is interesting language. I had a companion piece that talked about how some of the language they use is actually taken out of stuff that we've heard in the alt-right, for example, but it's not specifically them trying to push those types of ideologies.
What concerns me about these sort of stories is kids. Right?
Yeah.
I have a daughter. She watches YouTube all the time. And sometimes I wonder, like, do these people who make these videos realize that, you know, it might just be an 8-year-old kid watching the same video over and over and over again when their numbers are going up? And you're right, the algorithm sort of feeds them into the next video and the next video, next video. And before you know it, could be an hour goes by and you've got a kid watching an hour's worth of this stuff. I know with my own kid, there have been times where I was like, you can't watch that. I don't know what they're talking about, but they sound sort of really angry, and you got to watch something else.
Well, and the thing is, I spoke to one researcher who said, look, sometimes this stuff is cathartic, right? It's really, it feels good to kind of go after some of these things. And when a company does bad, everyone enjoys beating up at them. The question is, when you have a nonstop playlist of angry stuff and there's no moderation, what does that do to your psyche? What does it do to the way you think about the world you're living in? And those were the questions that really came up during the story.
Yeah.
But here, so let me play devil's advocate for just a moment.
Yeah.
It would strike me that some of these rants, whether it's over video games or over films or over products, for example, a lot of people in the guitar community, you know, will buy a new guitar and unbox it and then rant about what sucks about it. You know, I wonder if it's just, you know, I'm guessing a lot of these are men. And young boys, right?
Yes.
So I mean, that's a guess, but okay, because I could just imagine, you know, me, my 12 or 13-year-old self with my boys, like hanging out, and we're discussing the latest video game, you know, the Sega Genesis game back in the 80s, and we're going on about how terrible it is, or you know, we bought Pitfall for the Atari 2600, and we think it sucks, and everybody loves it, but we don't like it, and so we're sitting in a room and we're all like screaming at each other about it. Yeah. Isn't it the same thing?
On a level, it is, and I think what's interesting here, right, and what I wanted to really talk about in this story was about how YouTube encourages this. So let's look at the other angle there, right? That's a lot of legitimate concern. Hey, everyone's allowed to criticize anything. But the other end of it was that, for example, I talked to some people who tried to make positive videos, right? They noticed that they got getting more negative. The whole community was getting that way. They started creating negative videos because they saw their numbers rise. So they said, okay, I'm going to try a week of positive videos. Stuff I love, games I'm enjoying, right? Very legitimate stuff, not just trying to be positive. It was one of the worst weeks of views that guy had ever had.
Wow.
So it's not just that there's negativity out there. Of course, that's legitimate. It's that YouTube is actually encouraging it, and it's discouraging positive or moderating conversation.
Are there real-world consequences? I mean, besides the fact that, okay, some people are making a living off of this, but you mentioned bullying and stuff like that.
So there are examples where these people have gone after individual members of the community. It's not all of them, right? There's kind of a range of these different types of channels, as there is with everything. And in some cases, it really does start attacking, for example, women, making their lives really miserable, death threats, all sorts of stuff. I even got quite a bit of heat online for writing the story.
Wow.
So it's definitely interesting to see this stuff happen. Yeah.
Several senators have requested that the FTC delete data of minors. What's that all about?
So this is an interesting thing, right? One of the things that comes up with YouTube is that a lot of people are watching YouTube, even children, right? My 3-year-old gets my phone every once in a while because he's upset while we're in the car or whatever. He wants to see a video. I'm like, okay, fine. And some of it is very innocuous. What the reality is that YouTube is gathering information as he's watching that video, and it's informing my algorithm and all that stuff, but that's child data. And so there's now concern about what is that data? What does it mean? How does it pin to my child? And all these types of things. And we're starting to see various legislators really start getting involved in trying to say, okay, it's not okay for you to gather this information, even if it's accidental, on children. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do about it? And how are you going to keep it from informing your business?
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Ian Sherr, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.